Hey everyone, and welcome in. Today, we're diving into a truly incredible explainer that approaches the whole concept of personal transformation, but through a highly structured analytical lens. We're going to be unpacking Gideon Okoro's groundbreaking book, Uncommon Value to the Marketplace. Now, if you've ever felt like your career, or honestly, your whole life, is running on buggy, outdated software, you are absolutely going to love this. Okoro writes from the perspective of a solution architect, and he's created a literal blueprint for upgrading your life's enterprise system. He calls it the GIDAF Framework. Basically, it's about taking the exact same rigorous design principles that engineers use to build robust IT networks and applying them to architecting your own uncommon value.
Okay, let's dive into this. So, what actually happens when your life's operating system just completely crashes? Well, for Okoro, it started with a completely unexpected, catastrophic system failure. He had been pushing himself relentlessly, juggling the intense demands of work and life, when he woke up one morning and was just paralyzed. His balance was totally gone, his physical strength had just evaporated. He was rushed to a hospital in Lagos feeling completely deflated, kind of like a flat tire. For 4 days, he just lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering what was going to happen to all of those unfulfilled visions he had. But then, at 2 a.m., it hit him. He had this profound realization. This wasn't just a physical breakdown. This was a forced system downtime. It was a mandatory maintenance window initiated by the creator to stop him from running obsolete, unpatched operating systems. He was literally forced offline to undergo a complete recalibration.
So here is our system installation blueprint for today, showing how we architect personal setbacks into systemic, vision-powered value. We're going to start with the basement system reboot, move right through the identity hospital pre-check, then we'll architect the design vision, examine the GIDF flying bird structure, uncover the power of translighting, and finally, we'll render the Valuetainment output dashboard. All right, jumping into step 1, the basement system reboot. Think about any complex architecture for a second. You can't install a shiny new framework on a crumbling foundation, right? Every single human system occasionally hits ground zero. But here's the thing about this basement experience. Whether that's a hospitalization, a job loss, or a major life setback, it is a necessary maintenance window. It's not a failure. It's the press that produces the wine. As a computer scientist, Okoro really leans into this brilliant binary IT and hexadecimal metaphor here. Computers operate entirely on ones and zeros, right? Electrical signals of ons and offs. Well, you literally cannot have the ones of success and forward momentum without the foundational zeros of failure, pain, and pause. The zeros in your life are structural pillars. In fact, you should probably be highly suspicious of any success that hasn't been punctuated by these necessary lows.
Now, it's absolutely crucial to recognize the difference between an unguided system crash and a conscious reboot. On one hand, a system knockdown is triggered by intense stress and overwork, which usually leads to denial and then a forced, painful reevaluation. But on the other hand, conscious surrender is triggered by early awareness. It feels intentional, it's peaceful, and it leads to a deliberate, meaning-driven shift. Our goal here is to architect your life so that you transition away from a forced knockdown and move toward a conscious, strategic surrender.
Which brings us to step 2, the identity hospital pre-check. Before we allow any new operating system to run, we have to authenticate the user. It's Security 101. Okoro rightly points out that vague identities always produce vague value. That is exactly why defining your core I am statement is the absolute non-negotiable prerequisite to joining the GIDAF cycle. It's your unique brand proposition. If you try to bypass this authentication protocol at the identity center, well, your system is inevitably going to crash again because your external goals just won't align with your core internal programming. I want you to ask yourself a question. Which actually gives you a clearer vision of yourself? Looking outward at the world or looking inward? Okoro compares shutting our physical outer eyes to a flip-flop circuit in electronics. When you finally close off all that external noise, the inflation, social media, the daily chaotic grind, your inner eyes open. It acts as a switch, flooding your internal circuitry with convertible energy. It allows you to tap into your deepest desires and highest aspirations. The switching capacity inside of you is actually far larger than the routed bandwidth outside. Moving right along to step 3, architecting the design vision. So now that we've authenticated our identity, we're ready to actually install the new operating system. The GIDIF acronym stands for Global Insights for Designing Advanced Fronts. Essentially, it's a continuous improvement cycle made up of 5 hyper-converged buckets of light. Prevision and hypervision, those handle the being, who you are and what you clearly see. Activision handles the doing, the actual execution and the hard work. Postvision handles the future and your impact on others. And sitting right in the center, Provision represents the divine supply that powers the entire network. These 5 elements logically stack together to perfectly align your being, your doing, and your ultimate supply. Next up is step 4, the GIDAF Flying Bird. When you actually map out those 5 phases we just talked about, they collapse traditional boundaries into this unified aerodynamic shape that literally resembles a bird in flight. But to really understand how this bird operates, we have to look at modern network fabric. In enterprise IT, a spine leaf architecture collapses the core, distribution, and access layers into a super efficient 2-layered design. In the GIDAF framework, Provision, that divine central sponsor, is the spine. It's the only phase that connects directly to every single other phase, every leaf, simultaneously. Make no mistake, if your central sponsor isn't properly aligned, every single other phase is going to operate way under capacity. All right, step 5, the power of translating. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the core mechanism it introduces.
This brings us to the core operational mechanism that drives this entire architecture, translighting. Translighting is the intentional movement of a person, or even a whole group, from one level of excellence to a much higher one. But here's the catch. It does not happen by accident. It demands a sustained, completely uninterrupted supply of vision, knowledge, and action across all dimensions of your existence. You have to keep this cycle running continuously until that uncommon value finally crystallizes in your life.
Now, operating within this translating process, we utilize what are called universal light protocols. You can think of these sort of like network routing protocols, which exist to ensure that absolutely no energy or experience is ever wasted. When light strikes you, 3 things happen. First, it is reflected back to the source as praise and gratitude. Second, it's absorbed so you can enjoy life abundantly and internally photosynthesize that energy into real strength. And third, it is deflected, meaning it's purposefully routed and shared with others through your own unique channels. Nothing goes to waste.
And finally, we arrive at step 6, the Valuetainment Output Dashboard.
We've architected the system, we've authenticated the user, and we've engaged the routing protocols. Now it is time to render the ultimate marketplace deliverable. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how the foundational layers, those 5 visions running in a continuous, endless loop, act as the heavy quarry work. You do all that hard processing down in the basement, in the dark, in the woods, but that highly structured work automatically pushes the finished, refined value all the way up to the application layers above, where it rises out and becomes visible in the marketplace.
The dashboard shows a very clear output journey. It essentially moves your focus away from just your raw physical hardware endowments and upgrades you to software-driven empowerment. It starts at the base with excellence and consistency. Over time, that consistency generates true uncommon value. That specific value then yields joy, satisfaction, and wealth. And sitting at the very top of the stack, the ultimate application layer of your life is empowerment and mentorship. Because remember, your value isn't meant to just sit quietly in a local server. It's meant to touch the nations and positively, structurally impact the lives of others.
Which brings us to the final, ultimate query that you need to run on your own life's database today. Listen, the marketplace isn't waiting for some pristine, flawless product. It is waiting for a genuine, tested, and recovered one. So, when your system is fully optimized, when your personal downtime has been successfully converted into architectural strength, what will your uncommon value to the marketplace be remembered for? Take that provocative question with you. Let it run in the background as you deploy your newly architected system today.